Milan, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Hi Ashu, good to see you. So nice. We are all surviving the storm somewhere, survived. But yeah, that's where we are. That's where
Milan,
we are.
this is an interesting and an exciting and an important conversation, right? Because what you are doing is something which is very very fundamental, very basic to our existence, right? That this is something. Your business is something which is relevant for people in urban areas, people in cities, BCAT cities, tier two, tier three, and till about the last leg, right, which is the rural
Yeah,
leg we talk about, right?
yeah,
The Bharat economy that we talk about, right? And
correct.
thus it becomes very very important, right? The other thing is that you're operating as a mid-sized organization, right, which is catering to which is catering to the consumer in a product which has been there for a long time, right? And it's a very very competitive space, right? Because operating margins, your sourcing, so many things just become so much more important, right? Your production line, supply chain, all of that becomes important, right? Thus it
Sure.
becomes a very exciting conversation, right, where we're going to be discussing about a lot of these facets,
Hmm,
right?
hmm, hmm.
But before we do that, Milan, I'd love you to
Yes,
take us
please.
through your run, right? As a in your career, right? You've been a professional who's taken over a family-run business, and you've kind of changed it into a very sharp organization which is
Yeah,
geared to be one
yeah.
of the largest players in that market, right? And institutionalizing many many practices, right? So, I'd love to start with a quick round of introduction. We move to the session today.
Okay, so Ashu, journey has been completely, the word is transformational. It's not a fad word. But coming to a family run enterprise, fortunately coming from the white collar to a cusp of white and blue, I think that's the transition I'd call it. Because manufacturing, you have the challenges where you have to actually work with a lot of blue collar workforce. They are
Right,
your real talent, they are the backbone. So my journey has been very, very interesting. I had to change myself, unlearn and relearn a lot of things of where I come from,
right,
which is purely the corporate space. So for me, it's been a very, very exciting journey. And the kind of value, Ashu, I've been with Grace Almighty, I've added to the business, which
right,
is not only on the top and the bottom, but in terms of the transformation of culture, where
right,
people are feeling valued. Even at the factory level, we have so many engagements which
right,
are so inclusive. So I think not only the business scenario or perspective of looking at the business, but the cultural shift, which was very important, where people are feeling valued. So I
right,
think in the 5 year, 5.5, 6 year journey I've had with Walplast, for me it was alignment with the founders, understanding what are their expectations, from where they've started to where they
right,
are and where they want to go.
right,
So there was, a pause and of understanding. There was an alignment with them in terms of their expectations, and then there
right,
was a doing part, which is where we started. And today we've built a great organization. I can humbly say that because the COVID times has actually taught us where, with Almighty's grace, we could pay our people in full,
right.
even at the ground level, which is what calls for organization like mid-sized organization like ours, which is we have built with the right value, with the right character, and that's how we could do it. So I
Super.
think from top to bottom, Ashu, there has been a transformation. There are big transformations like the change of leadership team to the smallest of transformation when there is engagement at the
Right,
level of factories, at the level of workers, having a discussion, having dialogues, having briefings with them, even in crisis, which we all have seen for the first time in
right,
my 40 years of my career,
right.
my life. It's the first time we've seen something like this. So I think that's what has happened, Ashu.
No,
And
interesting.
yeah, and it's to my mind, it's going in the right direction, and
Right,
there is a long way to go. The industry is getting very, very competitive. We've got to create differentiators. We've
right,
got to think differently. We've got to see that how we make the change.
right,
Constantly, the entrepreneur in you cannot stop thinking.
right,
Today, I'm thinking about tomorrow already because you've had budgets which were much more in terms
right,
of value you could distribute. But today, you have the margins are getting thinner, the raw material pricing is changing, the entire supply chain scenario is changing, as you
right,
rightly said. So I think the change is very constant, and that's what is keeping me on my toes, my
right,
team on their toes, to keep thinking every day that we need to innovate, we need to innovate, we need to change the product mix, we need to keep serving at
right,
whatever. And end of the day, the customer comes first. So we haven't changed our pricing at all, though we have had a lot of cost pressures. So I think that's going to be very interesting how to stay afloat and keep going.
Milan, what happens is, at Asia Tech Journal, I tend to talk to a lot of founders, who come from the tech ecosystem, right? And very few who actually come from a manufacturing ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And manufacturing is a different animal, right? Which has, very, very different requirements, right? Be it energy, be it resources, be it funds, right? Be it calibration, be it focus, right? I think everything is what is required is completely different, right? And we're going to touch upon all of these aspects, right, through the course of the conversation, right? But Milan, just to sort of get the perspective on how large Walplast is, right? I know it, right? We've discussed at a personal level, but for everybody who's going to be hearing this and everybody who's listening to this, right? How large? What's your current portfolio like, right? So ever since you've taken over, you institutionalize many practices, right? How large is the product portfolio? That's one. Second, what's the expanse of Walplast, right? So across, the length and breadth of India, where all do we see that entire supply chain which is established to cater to the last customer which is there?
Yeah. So Walplast is started humbly in '06. I came in 2015 end, which was again a RERA time and a demo time, which we call it in short form. We can't forget those days where we use demonetization and RERA hit in, which is very good for the industry, very good for us, people like us who want to organize the space.
Right.
The expanse is currently we are across India in east, west, north, south.
Right.
We serve with 20 setups of ours. When I say 20 setups, these are 20 factories, independent factories, which is serving the customer. Because the second biggest cost in our industry after the product cost is the logistics cost.
Right.
So for us, it is more to do with serving the affordable housing, serving the MIDs, the LIGs, and the product, which is very, very important to keep it affordable. Because that's the beauty of the products we are serving in. On the product front also, we have evolved, Ashu, from just being a putty manufacturer to an integrated solution provider. So the transformation from a product enterprise to a solution enterprise is ongoing with all the hiccups happening. So that's ongoing. It's a continuous process. We need to keep telling people that yes, we will give you a solution. So today my sales guys not only look at giving the product on the ground, they also give after sales service ke sab application kaise karna hai, kya karna hai. So we have 20 setups across India in terms of, yes, we have crossed the MSME space. We are larger than, an SME, which is what the norms are. So I think we are in the right direction. We employ about 2,500, part-time employees, which are our workforce, and more than 500 FTEs on a full-time across India. And that's where we are. That's where we are, and growing. The good part is that we want to grow every year. The achievement I look at and I speak to my founders that if you add a 20 to 30% workforce, is when you are actually surviving, because the growth is the only way to survive today. If you want to look at an enterprise like ours, who's very aggressive, competing the who's who in the industry, I think we need to be very agile at the same time. Also look at growth when it comes to numbers. Also look at growth when it comes to addition of people. So that's what we are trying to do. That's what we are trying.
Very interesting, Milan. Milan, we are in Diwali season, right? We are recording this right ahead of Diwali, right? And I think I can't let you. Of course, I will dive into many other sort of facets of our conversation, which are very important, right? In terms of how you've handled and navigated through very difficult times, right? But before I do that, right, what's the expectation from Diwali? How is Diwali looking, right? I mean, these are exciting times, right?
These are very exciting times. Ashu, these are very exciting times. Honestly, I think first is Diwali being Diwali. I think for all of us, it's a very, very important festival in our country. May it be you, me. We somewhere want to pause and spend time with family, look at buying something for our dear ones. So same thing with the customer. It works similarly with the customer. The customer's expectation from an enterprise like ours, who's a partner, is there. So for us, Diwali is a very, very important time where we connect with our customers, not only at a primary level, but at a secondary level also. We reach out to our retailers, we reach out to our touch points, telling them that what they mean to us. And this is the time to acknowledge their partnership. So I think Diwali is that one time where you need to go human to human, and that's where the personalization happens in the business like ours. So that's what we keep doing. And this Diwali also, with so much challenge, we've ensured that we go to the last mile guy, thank him for his partnership. And that's what we do with all our
Super.
logistic partners, all our logistic partners, all our people on the ground,
That's
everybody. So
wonderful.
I think that's what it is.
But then, what do you make out of the market trends, right? I mean, how is there an exuberance? Is there excitement of Diwali, right? Or are we still sort of, this also sort of. I'm also want to walk into my next question, right? With this one, is that what do you make out of the sentiment, right? Are we there yet? I mean, are we beyond what we were possibly at 2019? Are we beyond COVID, or do you think it still will take a little time, right? I think we're possibly there. Path of recovery is there, but
Yes.
it's going to take a little more time. What's your sense of it, right? I mean, are the numbers
Uh,
reflective of that, or you think there's little more pain that needs to kind of, which will take a little time to
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
we'll
So,
take get
so, so
to.
I, very, very, very well articulated. It's a very interesting question. See, sentimentally, psychologically, we are there. We
Right,
want to get there. As a country, you look at, we are the fastest revival as a country.
right,
And why? Because everybody on the ground has had a belief that yes, there is a pent up demand, there is opportunity.
right,
We need to serve that opportunity, and that's what we are doing,
right,
day in day out. Having said that, the numbers don't meet up to the aspiration what an entrepreneur or
right,
organization like us have.
right.
There is still time for recovery. To
Mhm.
my mind, I'm too small a person to comment on this, but I'll try that 80% we should be there by the end of this year. And
Interesting.
next year, if things go right, I think we should come by next year, which is next Diwali. I'm very optimistic that, if we talk, it will be much better scenario on a
Right.
perception level, on a belief level, and also at the execution level. So today we have started. One is that we should not on an emotional level. I think we all are going to definitely enjoy this festival. We are
Right.
going to connect with all our people, and yes, it's important for everybody to
Right.
come out with the same sentiment. For all of us to feel great, to be great, and do well as well in the coming years. So I think it's a very critical juncture
Right.
where India is the fastest revival country, and
No,
I
I think
think
I
we
think
are
I completely
contributing to
agree
it.
with you that, Milan. What we're seeing is, I think, what essentially happened. Something that I realized when you talk to consumer internet companies, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Many D2C companies, right? I think one
yeah.
thing which is becoming a constant is that content has filled the gap, right? So while people were sitting at home, right, content came in, and the content just energized people in a very different way, right?
Correct,
Aspirationally, we just grew as a country, right?
correct,
And I
correct.
think that's been absolutely phenomenal. I think that's possibly what you were also sort of alluding to, right? That there's a
Yeah.
pent up aspiration which is coming, right?
Yes.
People want to buy. I think possibly a few months down the line we'll have
Yeah.
those the liquidity which is required, right? That
Correct.
revival is required to sort of eventually sort of propagate that demand. Milan, I'm going to move into a slightly more macro question, right?
Oh,
Which is that this period, right? What we've been through in the last 1.5 years, right? Has institutionalized a lot of consumption, right?
yeah.
We used to be an economy which used to operate massively in an unorganized format, right? So physical retail,
Correct.
physical everything used to be a very significant part of what we did, right? I'm sure
Mhm.
that's something which is almost 100% in your case, right?
Yeah.
Right? Do you think at a consumer level, this is more a consumer side
Sure.
question, right? Because it's very important for you to understand that side of the game, right?
Yeah.
Uh, what's your sense, right? I mean, is the consumer behavior getting institutionalized, right? What that essentially means is that are they going to go in for more packaged stuff, more branded stuff, right? You know, the trust that, for example, the trust ecosystem that we had, say in a tier two or a tier three city, right, is going to go away. It's going to be filled by brands. That's one. Second, do you think distribution strategies are going to change going forward? And this is more a macro question, right? This could be about Walplast, what you're seeing in the industry, right? What do you make out of this particular transition that we've been through on the consumer side?
See, consumer behavior is ever changing, as
Right.
we all know. Today, somebody were to buy from a shop vis-a-vis somebody were to buy on a street. Somebody, because of budget constraints, will buy on the street. He probably will get a similar or one level down product, but he's okay with it. So today, the consumer purchasing demand, brand vis-a-vis no brand, is getting clearer basis my requirements.
Right.
Example, I need something. I need, to gift a shirt to somebody.
Right.
I'm not going to buy a shirt. I'm going to probably settle for a B shirt because the person who's receiving that is going to be all right receiving that.
Right.
Because today, somewhere in our minds, as Indians, we all know what we've gone through in the last year and a half to about
Right.
2 years. Yeah. So people are not very conscious of their brands. People want to get the work done.
Right.
People want to make people good. I want to make you feel good. I want to gift Ashu something.
Right.
Yeah, I will gift him something, but that could not be something I would have gifted him last year
Right.
on a similar expense. So I think somewhere the sentiment is there, the emotion is there. as you rightly said, Ashu, the purchasing power will come through.
Right.
Next year, I'll probably have a much better gift to Ashu to make up for this year. So that's what is to my mind on a macro perspective with any
Interesting.
product segment, with any
Right.
product. So you look at repainting my house. I probably will not go for A paint. I probably would do a B paint, but I will
Right.
definitely repaint my house because that's my tradition. I
Right.
repaint my house before Diwali. I restore my
Absolutely.
home before Diwali. I make it look good. I want to feel good. So I
Right.
think probably instead of A product, I'll settle for a B product because this is the year where I also have to look at, ensuring that my house is in order, my home is taken care
Right.
of from every aspect. So I think that transition in the demand and supply will change for brands vis-a-vis no brand. So
Interesting.
that's my observation.
That's a very important point that you highlighted, right? And I'm gonna talk to you more about that, through the course of our conversation, right?
Sure.
But I'm gonna
Sure.
move into more a pandemic focused conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because it becomes important while, of course, we are, I think we're kind of out of the woods, right? In many ways, and hopefully keeping fingers crossed that the third wave doesn't necessarily hit us.
Yeah.
Uh, it's been a phase, right? And this is more business centric, right? Which is led organizations, or kind of literally pushed organizations to re-engineer their, operational play, right? At a design level and stuff, right? What's been your experience? I mean, like you said, right? I mean, you have 20 different factories. You are present across pretty much every single city, uh,
Mm.
which could consume, your product, right? You have a large
Yes.
supply chain, right?
Yes.
You're an organization which has a massive physical footprint, right?
Yes.
How has this phase been for you? Uh, what are some
Oh.
of the things that have changed forever, right?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of things have changed forever, Ashu, honestly.
Right,
So first things first is the way we look at, tightening our supply chains. One
right,
is the supply chain formats, which used to happen yesterday is not what's going to happen today and tomorrow. That's changed
right,
forever. We need to be very, very efficient from, producing a product
right,
to putting the product on the shelf to ensuring the product is consumed. The
right,
entire supply chain is completely changed forever. May it be our products, may it be anybody else's products, because now the demand supply,
mhm,
you at a perception level know that the products are going to go off the shelf,
right,
but they are not going off the shelves the way they used to. So your next order is not going to come in so early.
right,
Yeah, so it happens. So when in a much larger scale, you need to probably look at, and what we have done is as an
right,
enterprise, is to look at tailor making our orders, creating online orders, creating a supply chain where we take a order and then probably look at a
right,
delivery time which is a little larger than usual.
right.
We had
Interesting.
a 1 day 24 hours delivery time. Now we've said that sir 2 दिन में आपको goods on site मिलेगा. Are you okay with that? But if there
Right,
is a customer consumer who says that नहीं sir मुझे एक ही दिन में चाहिए, तो we step up that. So,
right,
so today the transition is from a stereotypical format and commitments to our internal SLAs to our KPIs which are saying that boss 24 hours delivery.
right,
We've tweaked and said that customer, sir आप मुझे 2 दिन का time दीजिए. I will
right.
definitely service you. If you need it tomorrow, if your people are on the ground, we will service you accordingly. So I think those formats have changed. The supply chain formats have changed. The expectation of people also have been more understanding. The customer used to yesterday give me, a no as an answer, is willing to accept. And he knows the challenge on the ground.
Right.
That, if there is a special product which we need to make for the customer, we tailor make those products. So that's
Right.
forever. Now we have started the
Interesting.
format. So today, inventory at my plants is sub-minimal. I used
Right.
to work at a 40% inventory. I'm trying to, create efficiencies and work at a 20% inventory now.
Right.
So where if the demand supply goes higher, if the demand goes higher than 20%, I start creating
Right.
basis on the tailor-make input I get from the market. So that is a good thing which has happened in the entire pandemic, which is efficiencies management, where we have created efficiencies. Also
Interesting.
technology.
Right.
Technology is we have involved a lot of technology. We've tailor-made a lot of things. Our CRM, our integration of app, which is front end, back end. My CRM talking to the plant, talking to giving us live inventory
Right.
status. To we telling the customer, sir, मेरे पास आज
Right.
available goods है. नहीं है सर मैं आपको 2 दिन के बाद दूंगा. So
Milan,
I think that integration, please,
very interesting.
please.
So I think I have a very specific question on tech, right? And I'll
Yeah.
just come to that. But before I come to that, right, on inventory management, and a very important point that you highlighted, right?
Yeah.
Now, for any manufacturing organization, raw material is something which is very, very critical, and of course,
Yes.
the value addition that happens on the cost, the input on the cost side on supply chain, right? For example, is very, very important, especially in an environment like the one you are kind of operating in, right? Now, what we've seen is, and this is not just in India, but I think globally, right? What has happened is because of this disruption and because of the supply chain breakage that has happened, right? There's
Yes.
eccentricity that we've seen in the behavior of prices of commodity, right? There are of course certain prices that are, that are at an output level, the prices have gone through the roof. There are certain other, problems where, at a policy level, the government has little option but
Yes.
to sort of continue to, ask for a higher price, right? And little can they do about the environment that we are in, right? These are
Right.
difficult times, right? What's
Very
what, what's been your sense of that, right? Because that is something in a business like the one you operate in, which is extremely commoditized, but you have to
Yes.
really fight it out, right? Otherwise, that demand moves into, and this is a very dynamic scenario in that sense, right? The demand could move into a very unorganized setup, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How have you been able to manage that particular piece, right? In the entire scheme of things,
Ashu, honestly, we are all, caught under the same act, which is act of surprise. Honestly,
right?
today, if you ask about raw materials, we are surprised, which the perception, pent up demand, and the supplies. Example, a commodity like cement, which is a very integral part of we make
Right,
cementitious products. So cement taking a correction, price correction, directly impacting us. I
right,
cannot pass on the cost to the customer. So for us, it has been a very, very challenging time.
right,
What is saving us is only the efficiencies. What is saving us is not the loss of product which are out of our shelf or
right,
perish products. We are in a perishable product
right.
range, so we ensure that the product is not perish. We don't lose products. We don't reprocess. We ensure that we efficiencies create on the power level. So for us as an enterprise like ours, we've got to look at efficiencies because there
Right,
are some things which are in our control and some things which are not.
right,
Yeah. Today, the chemical import from specific international enterprises or international countries like Germany, Korea, China, which is happening,
right,
we know there is a huge delay. We know the kind of logistics cost, with the supply chain costs which are involved
right,
have multiplied, not even added.
right,
Yeah. So it's unfortunate where there is no controls, and we'll have to wait and watch. See, the situation is there is a lot of speculation,
right,
but there is nobody who can put a finger to the problem.
right.
See, today the government is also saying
Interesting.
that, sir, ये हो रहा है, ये logistic में ये हो रहा है, we
Right,
don't see a ray of hope. But see, we all have to be hopeful of
right.
things to get better, for the world to be a better place for everybody to do trade. So
Interesting.
if I don't get a raw material cost, which is, where I need to look at my people cost, my factory cost, so many
Right,
costs, which I run with, and the customer gets the product, I will not be able to survive.
absolutely.
So today or tomorrow, we are very hopeful. We are very hopeful that things will get corrected in the next 3 to 6 months window. By March, I see a better roadmap for us. But today it's all speculation, Ashu, because
Interesting.
nobody can put a finger to the problem. Yeah,
Right,
everybody can talk. You look at the papers also; they're talking so many things.
right,
But how do we address it? The easiest is to ask why is it happening. The
right,
most difficult part is to what do we do about it.
right.
So today we are trying to do our bit from our end, where I'm saying that, sir, can we increase the efficiencies of the plant? Can we look at saving money, and end of the day not give difficulty to a customer, keep
Right,
supplying to them on stipulated time frames and ensure that our SLAs are kept, because it's a difficult time for them and us both,
right.
because as we are in the trade, they are also in the trade. They've got a
Sure.
shop, they've got a home to feed, they've got a family to run. So I think for us, all of us, we need to hold each other's hand in these difficult times and keep going
Interesting.
forward. And I'm sure better times ahead, we can all hope and pray for that.
I hope so too. But do you think in an environment like this, right, the role of the
Yeah,
government becomes a little more important, right? I mean,
huge.
what do you, as a business, as a CEO, right, as somebody who's running this business, right?
Yeah.
What's your sense of it, right? I mean, do you think the community? I mean, there has to be a better channel of communication that needs to happen. Do also the fact, right? There's not very clear data which is available, right? But do you think
Correct.
Indian manufacturer needs to be prioritized over, say import, which is happening from other countries, right? China has been one of the biggest. We've been importing big time from China across
Yes.
spectrum, right? Not just one
Yes.
or two
Yes.
industries, right? What's your sense of
Correct.
it? Does the role of the government, becomes important, right? And what possibly are your expectations? And that's how you can possibly answer this question, right? What are your expectations as
Uh,
CEO from the government, right? Do they need to come in and, and sort of give you certain cushion, right, which could help you operate better in this very difficult environment, right? Credit again has become a big problem, right? Working capital is kind of disrupted, right? So
yes,
we're in a
yes,
very difficult phase. I'm sure you're dealing with day in day out, right? What's your sense of it?
yes.
What are say top three things that you think the government should sort of take care of?
Ashu, the first thing is that we need to tighten the norms on the recovery of monies from the market.
Right,
Today, if you look at, there are traders which are genuinely stuck,
right,
in the entire scheme of things, and
right,
they talk to us. They said, "Sir, delay hoga payment. We are okay."
right,
But there are opportunists also there. We need to tighten the norms. The government needs to tighten the norms for
right,
a mid-sized organization like ours, where we recover our money today or tomorrow.
right,
Yeah. So I think that is point number one. Point number two is in the global scenario, in the geopolitical space. I know it's a very large
right,
terminology, but in the geopolitical space where there is our business is also dependent because we don't manufacture everything in India.
right.
Yeah, there is a particular level of import as well. We are dependent on other countries. We need to probably have better, trade agreements with them.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we need to open up channels where, countries, of course, we have the BRICS where we are talking about FTAs, but our trade agreements need to strengthen with countries which we are dependent on.
Right,
Yeah, unfortunately for the border scenario, unfortunately for the difficult times we are facing with our
right,
neighbors, and also look at. So this is also an opportunity for India to create those dependencies on themselves because see,
right,
we have only survived, Ashu, because we are a self-consuming economy. Trust you
right.
me, trust you me. In COVID, a country like India would have been gone back in time probably more 50 more years,
I agree.
and we are still there, which is grace Almighty. So where I'm coming from is that one is that you look at capabilities in our country. There are entrepreneurs like us who are trying to build more capabilities.
Right.
Example, can I backwardly integrate some few products which I import?
Interesting.
Yeah, again, that is you talk to the government, you look at a long-term vision, you look at a PPP or look at a partnership where I want to
Right.
create polymers. Example, polymers are imported currently from Germany, Europe. Trade lines, the kind of logistic cost are very very heavy for us to accommodate in our cost structures.
Right.
So I think somewhere we will have to today or tomorrow think of minimizing the dependency on imports and creating a value chain for ourselves,
Interesting.
which is also an opportunity. But at the same time, there are some technology inputs which we will need, in course of time where we have to work on R&D to create those technology
Right.
enhancements and mindset and the skill sets and all the requirement for us to start shop in our
Right.
country and to support. Like pet coke, for example, pet coke is a huge product in cement. Pet coke is what determines a lot of cost. India has started developing a lot of pet coke. So we used
Interesting.
to import, yeah, we used to import 75% of the pet coke. Now it's 50-50, which is a very interesting transformation for our
Right.
country. So some these transformations will eventually help us,
Interesting.
and that's where we need the support of government, where we look at creating a backward value chain, and they need to support us in creating, doing more research, giving us benefits to MSME in terms of loans, etc. Strengthening
Right.
the FTAs. These are few things which are coming to my mind at this point in time, but there's much more. Of course,
I can
we'll
imagine.
need government support on us. Yeah,
I can imagine. And
yeah,
manufacturing is a tough business to be in, right?
indeed,
And especially when you're dependent on the traditional ecosystem, right? We're not talking about the
correct.
venture capital ecosystem or that kind of a thing,
No,
right?
no, no.
But I
Bootstrap, doing it on our own, ensuring everybody is paid is not easy in today's scenario.
No, but I think there's a very interesting part. Milan, you alluded to innovation, right? And I think that's become a very very big constant. I think across organizations, right? Uh,
Yeah,
and there are like a bunch of interesting questions that I have, right? But I'm going to take them up towards the end of
yes,
our conversation, right? Uh,
sure.
in this part, I'm going to talk to you a little about tech, right? Something that we kind of you mentioned about early on, right? In terms of how tech sort of helped you come out of and the unfortunate phase that we've been through, right?
Yes,
Also help you optimize and prepare for future, right? And this is
yeah,
like I said right at the beginning of our conversation, right? It helped you institutionalize a lot of practices in house, right? Uh,
yes, yeah.
what are some of those implementations that you, for example, did, right? And going forward, what do you think? is the role of tech, right? Transparency, for example, in organizational decision making, right? In strategic decision making, how important is that going to become, right? And also, is the shape of organization changing? Because now that you've implemented tech, right, you can bring in more
Correct.
specialized people, right? What's happening on that
Yes.
front? Give me a sense of that, please.
See, I tell you, your value differentiator is technology.
Sure.
I put it very simply. If you were to look at your competition and somebody who comes in tomorrow, our product doesn't have, intellectual property. It's not
Right.
IP. I mean, you can make it, I can make it, or
Mhm.
sabki safed lagegi. It's not going to make a difference. If you make it, it's not going to come from different
Right.
color. Yeah. So why will somebody probably look at a Walplast? Why will somebody
Right.
go to organized player? है ना? Organized player पे लेने का यही फायदा है. So one is, he gets transparency. He knows where the product is. He looks at his mobile phone and knows that the truck is started. The truck is going to expect an
Right.
ETA इतना है. मेरा माल अभी आएगा. So I think organizations which are in the brink
Quality
of
is consistent.
yes consistent. देखो वो expectation तो default है.
Right.
Quality consistency on time delivery is a default understanding of the
Right.
customer and somebody who's a manufacturer. Now the tech plays a very critical role here. Is the value addition. Is somebody trying to take a product from an unorganized guy because वो
Right.
वही quality दे सकता है, वो भी कोशिश कर सकता है consistency लाने की. But now your technology, where you are giving him transparency, you are telling
Right.
him the online status of कितना goods कौन से factory में कहाँ
Right.
से available है. You can pick and choose. You can take a drop down. You can get on the app. You can get the goods. You can watch them coming. So I
Right.
think these differentiators one will have to create because you are eventually getting into a commoditized space. Yeah. So organizations like ours have taken a very bold step in
Right.
investing in technology in such a difficult time, where we have integrated our entire supply chain. So
Right.
for us, we need to keep doing that. आज हमने ये एक step लिया है. Next, we have to do few more things. We want to get on a cloud. We want to see a few more things given to the customer, the
Right.
consumer. Looking at even getting into the retailer. Example schemes हमें चलानी है. To whatever schemes and benefits, we want to pass on to the last guy, the
Right.
tertiary guy on the ground. Today we are passing it through our partner. So we have to constantly keep innovating on the technology front as well, because
It's
that is what is my value addition to
right.
what it is. So otherwise, it's going to be very very difficult.
What are some of the implementations that you've done, right? So I think a fairly good macro perspective, right, in terms of how all of this has happened, right? And I think what is also happening is that a lot of this distributed play supply chain that you've had, right, is now
Correct.
essentially coming onto one platform, right, which is
Correct.
very transparent, where they can communicate with you, they can raise a lot of questions, right? But
Yes.
what are some of the specific implementations that you've done, right? Say at a
Yeah.
plant level, at a logistic level, are there certain applications, for example, that you've created, right,
Yeah.
to sort of improve this entire process, right? Tell me a
Yeah.
little more about that.
Yeah. So at the application level, we work on a Oracle backdrop based CRM and
Sure.
ERP. So what we have done is we've integrated our ERP and the CRM.
Right.
CRM is predominantly somebody goes on the ground and
Right.
gets a lead. He has to enter that lead in the system.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is integrated with our ERP. That is
Right.
on the front end. That's on the sales front end.
Hmm.
All our sales orders go in the system which directly talks to the plant.
Right.
So today my plant knows that I had a planning of X and the orders are for Y. So
Right.
he has to communicate back via the system saying that I can, because it's only X as planning, I can only give you X and not Y. If there
Right.
is more than what they had planned production for that day.
Hmm.
So your ERP and CRM is talking on the front end. Your ERP at the front end, which is the sales office, is talking to the plant.
Right.
Then the plant is talking to the customer basis the logistic application, where
Right.
he is telling the customer, sir, idhar se so and so gaadi aapke udhar nikli hai. He
Right.
gets a SMS. The
Right.
gaadi starts. The stipulated ETA is this, provided there is any breakdown. Customer gets an opportunity, to understand where is his vehicle. He can
Interesting.
plan his manpower accordingly on the ground because these are all application based products. So he needs to plan his headcount accordingly and basis the entire supply chain. So
Interesting.
that's what we have tried to do. The front end and the back end is what we've integrated. Of course, we internally also look at our raw material input. So procure to pay is what we look at as a cycle.
Right.
So our ERP gives us a business intelligence report, which is procurement. हमारे पास raw material क्या है, आज कितना production होने वाला है, what is the inventory we have, and what is the finished goods we have. We get a
Right.
report every day. And what is the
Very
sales
interesting.
which is gone, कितना माल आज गया है, कौन सा productization. We don't have many SKUs. We have limited SKUs, which is about 20. But
Right.
the SKUs is important to know, what is left, what we
Absolutely.
need to plan. So that's how we are internally talking to each other between procurement se leke payment tak.
Super.
We observe everything, and for us, it's a very important tool. Sitting in the office and observing these things and looking at making some tweakings time and again. Example, a credit limit gone high. The customers, we have got to call the customer from the back end
Right.
and tell them, the credit limit is finished, sir. You please probably make payment. In case you don't probably not make payments, the next order could be stalled.
Right.
Example. So
Very
that's
interesting. Milan, what I'd love to understand, I think
please.
there's this phenomenal piece that
Yeah.
you kind of mentioned about, right? And I think within the limit, I think we need a separate session for
Sure, sure,
covering this
sure.
in length, right? And we'll
You,
possibly
you
do that
being
sometime soon.
you being the tech guys, I'm sure you understand this much better than I do. But
Uh,
we are trying.
but
Yeah.
what I want to understand is, right, with this now analytics available, right, for business decision
Yes.
making, which wasn't really the case, right, in a pre-COVID sort of a time, right?
Correct. Correct.
Uh, this could be a little unfair question, right? Because we've essentially been in this space just about a year and a half, right, and we're still
Yeah.
kind of recovering from it. But have you been able to measure the impact that it's done, right? What are some of those, if you have, right? What are the larger things that you've noticed, right? For example, that have changed, right? Have your pay cycles changed? Risk, for example, in business, right? You're able to define it better. There's better
Yeah.
continuity in relationship. What's the kind of impact that you've been able to measure
See,
with this implementation?
the measurable impact, I'm using the word again, is
Right.
about efficiencies.
Right.
Today we are very efficient. We are keeping it lean. We are not loading our inventory. We are not blocking our working capital.
Right.
We are much more efficient. See, today, entrepreneurial organization like ours need to look at our working capital constantly because we
Right.
are dependent on banks. We are dependent on the money coming in.
Right.
The credit cycles have gone haywire.
Right.
So, we probably one is I need to produce. There is a next cost of production. I need to also collect from the market because I
Right.
need to keep the ball rolling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for this entire technology inputs, what we've given, what we have seen is between X and Y, which is the production and the money coming from market,
Right.
we've been able to look at our risk mitigation. We've been able to
Interesting.
mitigate our risk with the
Right.
customer. We know when there is a with high alert,
Right.
fortunately from the system where
Right.
we know the customer is probably a defaulter. See, probability hai. It's not that we know the customer is
Interesting.
defaulter.
Right. No,
Probably
of course. Right.
after a particular point in time, if it's a defined time cycle of 60-day payment, it goes to 90-day, and if he goes above 90 days, it's a red alert for us because
Right.
the older the money gets, the difficult it is for us to recover it. So
Right.
for us at this point in time, this entire system has given us much more opportunity to mitigate our risk on the front end and the back end. Also
Right.
to create efficiencies on reducing the entire working capital for inventory. Today, inventory
Right.
banana हमारा limited 20% inventory का हमारा internal benchmark है, which is what
Right.
we've kept it at that way. So it was 40%, now we've done 20%. Reducing the inventory, reducing the money we block on the ground of the products,
Right.
ensuring we give time. So and this entire supply chain has really helped us.
Right. Very interesting. Milan, I think in business there's nothing good or bad, right? I think there are just
Yeah,
indicators, right? And I think that's what
yeah,
you're alluding to, right? I think
absolutely,
that's right. But
absolutely.
listen, tell me this, right? So, and are there any certain, so while of course these are certain operational aspects, you've been able to sort of improve performance on that, you know,
Yeah,
plan better, strategize better, right? But are
yeah,
there certain risk mitigation measures that you've taken? So, for example, say, hedging across core commodity costs and stuff like that, right? Are there some of freight, for example, right? I think a lot of international
yeah.
companies, right? Do that, right? So they essentially hedge themselves across freight, core commodity production, right? So on and
Yeah.
so forth, right?
Yeah.
Are there some of those measures that you use in your business,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
not right
We
now?
definitely, yeah, we use those. We use hedging. We use the forex hedging. We constantly do it because
Right,
we deal with the international market for imports.
right.
We have a lot of products which we import, so we keep doing
Interesting.
forex hedging as well to mitigate our risk, ensuring that we are stable, ensuring that we are not overboard. We book
Right,
at a price, even on the commodity where we have to book, larger consignments.
right.
We look at tap in the market. We look at how we can optimize and
Interesting.
mitigate those inputs. So I think
Interesting.
we
So, Milan, that actually sort of leads me into my next question, right? Which
yeah.
is about the global opportunity, right? Now, typically, what happens in my sessions, I talk to founders, right? And given that these are tech founders, right, who are catering for urban India, and then
Mm.
now sort of aspire to sort of tackle, say, tier two, tier three, and further down, right? In your case,
Mm.
you're already there, right? You're already catering
Mm.
to a lot of that, right? Um,
Uh,
but I think which is very important for MSCs, mid-sized companies, large enterprises, right? Is to we've largely been an inward-looking economy, right? Exports
Correct.
has been a thinner part of what we do, right?
Yeah.
What's the global opportunity? What's the global aspiration, right? So for Milan, right, as uh, a business leader, right, who's building Walplast, right,
Yeah.
is building in a lot of these phenomenal practices, right, is making a brand which is globally competitive, right? What's the
Yeah.
global aspiration, right? What are we looking at? next couple of years?
Honest couple of years, we definitely see. I tell you, the good thing is that being lean and agile, we are the largest exporter of Walpatti in the country today
Right.
from the last years. Yeah, I'll humbly put that. Uh, Also, there is a huge opportunity because the world is under transformation.
Right.
The world, you look at developing nations, they are all looking at the space which is, affordable housing. And
Right.
fortunately, we are already there. India is
Right.
a huge transformation after this government. You look at the focus on affordable homes, and all our products are affordable products. So
Right.
there is a huge opportunity out there. Yeah. Fortunately, we are in a consuming economy.
Right.
But at the same time, being global is very important. Today, we have started exporting. We are looking at products, the product mix changing from just the wall putty to so many other products
Right.
like textures, adhesives, plasters in a smaller country which is developing. Example, Seychelles, example, the Maldives, islands
Right.
like Fiji Island, we are exporting. So
Interesting.
for us, it's very important to look at nurturing these relationships and to look at scope where we can create, if you can create an opportunity in countries like this
Right.
and have a global footprint. Currently, we have a footprint in Kenya where we have our own setup, which was
Interesting.
in a JV with a very interesting partner.
Right.
So likewise, we want to put captive units where we can actually help those countries to create affordable housing, and that's a
Right.
huge platform, a huge space we are looking forward to, and we are taking baby steps. Probably COVID is put us back in time of our global plans, but I think yeah, but I think overall we are definitely optimistic about our global plans
And
about
which are going to be some of the key markets that you're going to be in?
so to start with, this is Middle East and Africa. Africa
Interesting.
has got a huge potential of affordable homes. Middle
Right.
East is also transitioning towards, countries are transitioning towards affordable housing. So I think these are the two, and also a lot of islands. We have a
Right.
lot of these islands which are independent, where they don't have supply chains.
Right.
Is where we can create a captive setup. Work with them, work with probably even the government.
Interesting.
To create captive setups and make it very feasible for them. So I think
Interesting.
that's the space
Milan,
we are.
we're towards the end of our conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I think I can't let you go without talking of innovation, right? And I think every organization today needs to innovate, right? There's a huge amount of research, which is, for example, happening in material sciences, right? And I'm sure you're tracking a lot of that. You're already abreast with the latest development which is happening, right? As an organization, right? As a as a product play,
Mm,
right? As
mm,
part of your
mm,
portfolio,
mm.
right? What's the kind of innovation that you think is going to be critical going forward, right? We've seen a lot of engineering which has happened in the way we construct, for example, right? Where we are
Correct, correct.
using faster techniques of undertaking construction, right? Gone are the days when you used to it used to take forever, right, to build a
Yeah,
house.
yeah, yeah. Today
What's happening?
you have AC blocks to prefabs to every structure available.
Absolutely,
You can
right?
build a home in a stipulated time frame.
I mean, there are
Previously,
buildings,
हमारा घर बनता था वो पता नहीं था.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
what's the kind of innovation that you're looking at across your portfolio, right? I mean, is there a certain amount of energy resources that are being deployed towards innovation,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Which you see becoming, translating into a product which could become a part of your portfolio. What would some of them
Uh,
be, right? I mean, I understand not, you can't
sure.
share a lot of those
No,
insights, but whatever you can,
I
that'll
will,
be helpful,
absolutely. No, no. So I'm saying very similar to what I shared with you, Ashu, earlier,
right?
that we need to look at the backward integration.
Right.
We need to probably look at productization, not only the product sense to give to the market,
Sure.
but also the raw materials which are probably going to be used in making the product.
Interesting.
So,
Right.
example, polymers. Polymers, India is not a great polymer market. So, I think
Right.
today we are working on R&D on how to create polymer
Interesting.
in India.
Right.
Yeah, that is one of the key raw material to a lot of our partners, not only for us, but for a lot of partners,
Right.
and also other products which are in pipeline. We are looking at ensuring we keep a home as affordable as possible for
Right.
somebody in a B tier city, C tier city. If they want to make a home, can they make an affordable home, and what
Right.
are the ingredients required for it? So we are working on a lot of cementitious product in our laboratory.
Right.
Constantly 4% to 5% of our budgets are focused on R&D,
Right.
and that's the amount of efforts we put on research. And every year we test about 4 products,
Interesting.
and yeah. So this year the focus is on looking at backward integration. If we
Right.
create a few product lines which help,
Interesting.
which are currently raw materials for us,
Right.
that's the roadmap. That's the roadmap.
Super. Milan, last two questions, right? What are the next
Please.
2 years like, right? What are we seeing Walplast achieve in the next 2 years, right? What are the goals that you've set for yourself as the sailor of the ship, right? What is it
Yeah,
that we could
yeah.
see it achieve?
See, next year is a very interesting times for us, where, as we rightly discussed, we are looking at the global sphere. We are
Right.
looking as world as a marketplace, and not only India. So we have some international plans, setting up some shops internationally.
Interesting.
One, two is expanding in India, which got stalled because of the huge steel raw material price increment and otherwise
Right.
also other raw materials. So we've stalled those plans for now. So
Right.
India, we are looking at expanding, looking at going deeper to our roots, looking at setting shop in the smaller towns and
Right.
cities where we can not only generate employment but also cater to the market and create, ensure we deliver to their needs. So these are
Right.
a couple of things which are on our mind. So next 2 years is going to be very exciting. Also, as I mentioned to you, we tend to increase our workforce by 20%, which is what going to be a huge challenge.
Right.
But we will constantly be at that. So that's also one of our goal in terms of giving back. So I think that's where
And
we
and
are.
and and, and doubling the top line.
I don't know. Trust you me, Ashu, I would have given you a better answer and said yes. But today, the kind of raw material, we need to somewhere get a little more sense in
Right.
terms of numbers, and somewhere things need to get a little more stable.
Right.
So, if that happens, definitely, yes, the top line is going to increase. I don't know about double, but yes, definitely,
No, I can
very
imagine. I
aggressive,
I
very
can I can
aggressive.
imagine, Milan. I think we are in uncharted territories. I think a lot of
Yes,
this needs to kind of stabilize. I think
yes,
government needs to sort of proactively address a few things, right? And I think it'll get there. I think we'll get there. We're a market which is very aspirational, right? Milan, my last
absolutely.
question, where my last question in the conversation, right? Something which is more
Please.
personal, right?
Yes,
You were a working professional, right?
yes,
Who took over a family-run business, right? And you
yes,
changed the face of the business in many ways,
yes,
right? And I'm sure the promoters put that trust in you, and you've kind of
yes, yes.
fared beautifully,
More than,
right, in the process. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, India has been a land of family businesses, right? We've been a land of family businesses. Now, incidentally, what has happened is the consumer has shifted, right? Consumer has become
yeah,
more, clear in terms of his or her expectations, right? The inhibition is gone. There is money to be spent, right?
yes,
The
yes,
expectations have gone through, right? Which essentially, what becomes important is that family-run businesses now bring in professional talent to run those operations and put that trust, right? How
yes.
important do you think is it going to become going forward, right? You've been through that change, right? And possibly, certain tips, right, and advices that,
Yeah,
you could be relevant for the promoters and also people who are working within the organizations. I think could be a
yeah,
fantastic
yeah,
closing
yeah.
point to this conversation.
Okay, so very, very interesting question, Ashu. I must tell you, and it's been a very, very interesting journey. I'd probably love to talk to you on a very personal level and give you some more inputs, which are. But on a professional level, I think people need to be open to take risks. People need to trust people. That's
Sure.
what our country is built on.
Right.
People coming from a professional space to a family environment is a huge transition for
Right.
anybody in terms of not only mindset but also about behavior, about aligning, about culture transition, about so many
Right.
aspects. Yeah, one has to take it slow. One doesn't have to rush to be the change.
Right.
One has to be a change agent. Being a change agent takes a lot more than just you coming and saying that, hey, the structure needs to be changed.
Right.
Hey, this needs to be changed. That needs to be changed. This is not the way you. This is. So the change will come once you build the trust with the founders. That change is very important. Once
Right.
that trust comes in, you'll be able to do much more. And you need to, one is new parallel in terms of, see, I'm driving as a great international story. But
Right.
you also need to parallelly drive the numbers, the faith, the
Right.
confidence that yes, the business is growing. Without the numbers, we all can, you and me can talk to eternity. But
Right.
if I wouldn't have got the business to where it is today,
Right.
probably you wouldn't have spoken to me. So what my input is that we need to, yes, build a global story, create a much larger platform,
Right.
which today family business needs. They need professional inputs because there is
Right.
a ceiling which they can get to.
Mm-hmm.
There's a much larger ceiling, which is the potential. So on a potential level, if you would have looked at Walplast 5 years ago and you look at Walplast now, you are looking at the organization seriously because we are talking about it. We are making sense. You look at
Right.
our, yearly reports from ICRA and now Sybil.
Right.
You look at our report card, which talks for itself in what changes we are making. It's there on the balance. It's out in the
Right.
public domain. So where I'm coming from is that organized people need to be patient. Professionals need to take risks, like of course I have, but
Right.
be the change agent. Be the change agent. Family business are here to stay. If you look at some statistics in India, they say that more than 80% numbers are family business owned
Right.
and run. So we need to, even the toppest business to smallest business, we need to be the change agent. People should take. But yes, you need to have a gestation period. There needs to be a transition period. You need to give yourself time, the founders time, but you need to also parallelly keep the ball rolling. You need to get the numbers on the board. Yeah. So that's my
And,
humble.
and Milan, what's
Yeah.
the advice for promoters, right? I mean, you've given advice for professionals who are looking to, or could possibly
Yeah.
take over the mantle of running these businesses, right? So
Yeah.
what
So
will
for
be that advice to promoters?
promoters, they need to trust people eventually, and to take the business to the next level. It's
Right.
important at some point in time when to accept that yes, I have reached a glass ceiling in terms of where this business can go.
Right.
And that's the point in time where they need to accept, talent externally, make them comfortable, ensure and give them eventually, pass the baton to somebody who can do a better job, because
Right.
founders generally don't do that. Founders probably think they know it all, but there are times where there are a lot of professional inputs
Right.
which can help. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because see, that's how the success stories are built in our country. You
Right.
look at success stories from the last 100 years. Success stories, founders ko success story pata hai. But I think somewhere the professional input helps not only keep the organization going, but also sustainable for the next 50 to 100 years.
Right.
Today, people, businesses shouldn't die with entrepreneurs. That's
Right.
the unfortunate thing in our country. A lot of business, if you look at, I'm sure you'll have research to back this.
Right.
I'll send some data across. Businesses have died with entrepreneurs. So,
Absolutely.
that shouldn't be the case. That's where the professional comes in, create a sustainable organization. Now your ESG is happening. A lot of, ESG is, there in limelights. But for doing ESG, we need to first is get the business stable, ensure they go to the next level, and then very probably park some money for ESG, social governance, and also create a framework which is sustainable.
Right.
Milan is running this business tomorrow. Trust me, I've created a framework where anybody who comes in after me will run this business as efficiently and probably better. Yeah,
Right.
and that's where the professionals come in and create a governance. So today, governance is very important, which is not found in family business.
Right.
They work in a different format. So I think the structure, the governance, the approach, the systems, the processes is where the transformation is required. So and they need to let professionals in. The farm promoters need to let the professionals in to drive the change and be the change.
Super. Super. Milan, with that, we're going to bring this session to a close. I mean, this is almost become cliche, right? I land up saying this, post every conversation that I have, right? That, how I want these sessions to keep going, right? But I think in interest of time, keeping it interesting for people who are going to be watching this, right? We'll bring this session to a close, but I look forward to having many, many more such discussions with you, right? Because, there's just so much of intelligence which is there across every single step, right? That a founder, a business leader, entrepreneur has to make today, right? In dynamic times that we're in, right? And it becomes all the more critical and interesting in an environment that you operate in, right? Because there are very clear pressures, right, on the consumer expectation side, on the price side that you work, and the inputs that you sort of, that entire supply chain that you manage, right? I'd look forward to having you with us much sooner, Milan. It was an absolutely phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and we wish you all the very best. This is an interesting season. I hope this turns out to be much better than what you anticipate, right? People
need your
go on
blessings.
and
Need your
spend
blessing. We
more
need your blessing,
money.
Ashu. Yeah.
I think all of us are in it together, right?
Yeah,
Thank you so
we
much,
need your
man. Thank you so
blessings.
much. It was a
Thank
phenomenal
you
fun.
so much. Thank you for your time. Sincerely appreciate it once again.